You caught me. I was getting my hydration up. Let me get live on all platforms. Make sure we are good. How we doing over here on Instagrams? We going live? Yes, we are. All right, cool. And before we go fully live, I just want to go ahead and apologize. Sorry for not going live more than a few times last week. Had to get some stuff sorted out, but we got it sorted out. So we're good to go for this week. We'll be live on typically the schedule is Tuesday, Thursdays at 7 a.m.-ish, somewhere between 7 to 8 a.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays. And on Sunday, we go ahead and do like a 7 p.m. live stream. So that's the schedule. We'll try and stick to it. You know, with my other clients, I try and really prioritize their live streams first, and then I'll try and get to you guys if I can. But that's the schedule I want to try and go ahead and stick to for you guys. So hopefully we can keep that up. But that being said, let's jump into what we are talking about today. You know, this is going to apply to a lot of the people who really see a lot of my clients' results and what we're doing with a lot of these guys. Because the reality is a lot of these guys who train with me are people who maybe have not trained in a long time, or people who, you know, maybe, you know, they're struggling with taking things to that extra level, right? Like they feel stuck. They're stuck in a plateau. And a lot of the times, guys, like it's because a few different things are off, and those specific things are going to allow, like once I can get you on track with trying to make sure we are doing those things, those specific things I'm actually going to be able to do like a lot of different things with, including helping you build muscle while going ahead and burning off most of that body fat. And so this is a thing that a lot of people tend to get off, especially when they're getting into getting things down the right way. Like I said, I want to say getting into fitness, but like sometimes people are getting into fitness and they just simply are not doing things the right way, right? And that's when I like to go ahead and get my hands on them and make sure that we can go ahead and start seeing results. If you're stuck in a plateau, listen, that's probably what's going on. You need to listen to what I'm talking about today, because we're going to go over a few different things that are going to help you in regards to building muscle, in regards to burning fat. And this is a lot of the stuff you'll see with a lot of my clients that have gotten results. Like I said, we got our client, Ashley. She lost 10% body fat with me, barely changed her weight at all. I don't think she even lost like more than like 2 pounds, right? But she looked like a completely different person because she replaced it with muscle, right? So that's something to kind of keep in mind. You know, I can think of a few, you know, again, so go look at my pinned post on any of my pages. Something I'm going to try and do, guys, is every time I do a testimonial or something like that, or have like a, you know, do something with the clients, I'll try and pin the most recent one, which I do them all the time. So usually we'll see like anywhere between 1 to 2 a month switch out on there. But I think the one we have on there right now is our client Morgan, and she lost like, I'll have to go back and look at the exact numbers, but I believe she gained like 3 pounds of muscle and lost like 5 pounds of overall body fat. And we know that based off of body fat percentages. Another client I can throw out there would be our client Trevor. Another client I can throw out there would be our client Renee. Again, guys, a lot of these guys, if you go to my pinned post, I think I have a post where it actually shows all these guys, so that way you can actually see what I'm talking about. But this is what we're doing with these guys. Like, we're basically doing a body recomposition, and that means we are burning body fat and we're building muscle, and a lot of the times we're also building strength along the way. That is something you can do at one time for a very specific subset of people. I say specific. There's most people, because most people are out of shape. So if you're out of shape, a lot of the times we can work on that recomposition right off the bat. It's probably what you need to be focused on, right? But one thing I do got to say for people who are starting, who have been in this game for a while, like 1 to 2 years, you do a good thing to note is that at some point it could be that you're plateauing because you need to start shifting gears into focuses. And this is the thing, you can't do a body recomposition if you want to get better results in one or the other field. Like if you want to gain more muscle more than you want to burn body fat, then you need to focus on bulking. If you want to like lose more body fat than you want to focus on gaining muscle, then you need to focus on cutting, right? But until you get to that point, until you get to a point where like, you know, either fat loss stalls or like maybe your strength gain stall, and you don't have a subset goal like that, we need to make sure you're focusing on body recomposition first. For example, these kind of people are going to be people who are kind of new to the fitness game, don't know much about what you're doing, right? You don't know much about exercise. You don't really know how a workout program works. You don't really know how to diet. That's for you, right? Or people who maybe have done that in the past and they're trying to get back into it and they're still struggling because they're basing their knowledge off of old stuff that's not really, it's outdated, right? And so this is a lot of the people I'll tend to see is not necessarily, and a lot of these people are people who have done some kind of fitness thing before, but it hasn't helped them get the specific result they're looking for. That's where I come into play, right? So one thing I want to go ahead and get into is why people get it wrong. For example, and this should be evident for some of you guys, for other of you guys. Again, it all just depends on how often you expose yourself to the fitness realm and who you are listening to. It's evident for me because I've been doing this for 15 years, right? But why people get this wrong is one big thing I see very often is people cut calories way too much, cutting way too many calories. Guys, I get it. You want to burn that body fat off. But even if you want sustainable fat loss, and this is a big thing, even if you're prioritizing cutting body fat, you still need to eat a certain amount of calories so that you can keep the muscle you have, or at least as much of it as you can, because that's going to help you keep that fat off. Okay? What a lot of people do is they get on these 1,000-calorie diets, or even if you're guys, if you're 300, 400 pounds, that you'll get on these 2,000 calorie diets are just simply too little for you. And what's going to happen is most of that weight loss you're going to see immediately is going to be water weight and muscle mass, because your body is just simply getting rid of the stuff it doesn't feel like it needs. It doesn't feel like it needs that muscle unless, of course, you are training very religiously, but you probably are not going to be doing that 6 days a week if you are 300 and 400 pounds, okay? There's not anyone that's 300 and 400 pounds unless you're freaking 6'6", which is very small subset of the population, but there's not anyone out there that is going to be in that boat, okay? So we need to make sure you guys get this, and especially when we're talking about your health and making sure that you're not going to die of heart disease, it doesn't matter. Being 300 pounds doesn't matter who you are, it's going to shorten your lifespan. Does not matter how low your body fat percentage is. I think that's a big misconception for a lot of people, that think it is just a body fat percentage thing. It is a large part of it, but at a certain point too, even if it's all muscle, it's still a big factor on the heart, okay? We know this from cattle, guys. I mean, this is very evident from using testosterone on cattle, their heart enlarges, okay? That's what happens when you gain muscle too. If you gain muscle, and it's not even that to the point. It's not like it's super just unhealthy, but the big thing to keep in mind here, guys, is that it's the weight. It's how much weight you are and stuff that we'll get into here in a little bit. But a big thing we need to understand is that if you're cutting too many calories, it's going to make it to where you're going to lose mostly muscle. And it's not that you're not going to lose any fat. It's that when you finally stop eating that low of calories, because you will not be able to sustain that. You will go into a feeding frenzy, because it's just simply you're going to be literally starving yourself. Okay, so you're going to get a little bit animalistic with your eating behaviors or your mentality when it comes to the wrong food. You're talking to someone who's done I think the most I've done is I think it was a 54-hour fast is when I finally broke. So it was more than 2 days. So I know what it feels like to actually be hungry like that, guys. Your mind starts playing all kinds of freaking tricks on you. And we're talking about people who if you're in a calorie deficit long enough, it starts getting that way. For example, if you're in a 1,000-calorie deficit and you're burning 3,500 calories a day, right? It doesn't matter if you're technically eating that day. It means you're still losing so much energy, calories, that it's causing some severe problems. And it is going to, again, that was just 54 hours for me. That's 2.5 days. Think about a week's worth. Within a week, you're in the same boat, right? So it's one of those things. Keep this in mind. Do not severely undereat. And if you have to, feed yourself more, make yourself eat. This is why we track calories. And that's the number one reason why I think people get this wrong. Most people just don't want to track calories, even though it's the most guaranteed way we can make sure that you're going to get these results, guys. And I think a lot of people don't freaking understand this part, is that is where almost all your results lie. And if you are struggling and you're in a plateau, or if you are not seeing results you want to see, or if you are someone who is wanting to lose 30 to 50 pounds and you just can't figure it out, it's probably because you are not tracking your calories consistently. I can almost bet money on that, okay? Because the reality is you wouldn't have to lose 30 to 50 pounds if that was the case for most people. Or your tracking is probably, if you are tracking, you're still at that boat, your tracking is probably severely off, and we need to make sure you're, using a food scale, because that is something, again, I've done so many live streams on this. Go watch my other live streams. We're not talking about that today. But it has a lot to do with calorie tracking. It has a lot to do with like what you're putting into your body. A lot less to do with your workouts. Okay, now, again, another big thing is we need to make sure we're lifting weights, right? If you want to build muscle while burning fat, you need to be weight training. It's a mandatory part of the process, right? But that being said, too, it's just something you got to be aware of, because, again, guys, what people don't understand about being in these calorie deficits or under eating, for example, is that you are not going to be of sound mind. It is by default, you are not going to be at 100% mental capacity, because you are functioning at it's like literally running your house at 0.25% or not a quarter, but like half battery. All the lights would be dimmed down. Sorry, I hit the mic. I'm sure that was loud as hell. But like, that's something you got to be aware of, guys. It means that a lot of your rationalizations are not going to be based on reality. And we have to be aware of that, because that's the exact thing that's going to make you want to cheat on your diet. It's going to be the exact thing that's going to make you want to skip the gym. It's going to be a lot of things that are going to make you make excuses, and you do not need to be doing them. So you need to be aware of the standard you need to be setting in place. Like, one, track your calories. I can tell you that right now. If you're not tracking your calories, you are not doing the right thing. I can guarantee it. I can bet money on it that if you are not tracking your calories, you are probably not where you want to be. Are there some people that can get away with it? Sure, but they are living a very particular lifestyle that allows that. Maybe they get a lot of steps in a day and they eat mainly a high protein diet, whatever the case may be. If you do not have those results, I would not bank on that. What I would bank on is tracking your calories. Okay, so let's please start there. Please. Because I promise you, that is where most people's problem starts. All right. And another big thing, because again, the main thing we're talking about is building muscle or burning fat while building muscle, is if you really want to make sure you keep that muscle. And again, guys, if you really want to get rid of that body fat for a lifetime, you need to keep that muscle. That muscle is what keeps that fat off. It is your metabolism. Okay. That is something I think a lot of people don't understand. Is that your muscle mass is your metabolism. It's the only way you can actually increase your metabolism, by the way, is by gaining muscle. It's the only way you can increase your metabolism in a significant way like that. Like, yes, you can do stuff like, I say that, like exercise and stuff like that, but guess what? You're gaining muscle when you're doing a lot of this stuff. So again, it's a whole different thing for a different day, but that is something that a lot of people don't understand, is that your calorie burning per day, let's take two people right now, right? Let's take two 200-pound people at 6 foot tall. The person at 12% body fat and the person at 30% body fat are completely different people. Okay? They are not burning the same amount of calories at rest. Muscle requires way more calories at rest. So that is why you want to make sure you keep as much muscle as possible. It is what's going to keep the body fat off. We have to make sure we remember that part, because a lot of people, again, are under eating. And this is another big part. A lot of people are chasing the scale weight instead of body composition. Guys, in a lot of my content and a lot of my client transformations, I really try hard not to just focus on weight. Now, if we had a lot of weight to lose, I'll throw it in there. Or if there is a good amount of weight loss, I'll throw it in there. But I care way more about body fat percentage. If you want to keep as much muscle as possible while shredding body fat and not just focus on weight loss so you look like a skinny little twig and then gain that fat back because you have no muscle on you, then you need to make sure you're focusing on body fat percentage. Now, here's the issue. Tracking body fat percentage is not something that's easy for everyone to do. The reason I can recommend it for a lot of my local people is I personally have worked in the fitness realm in this area for a long time. I know where you can go get like body fat percentage tests basically for free and then be decently accurate. A lot of them are in-body tests, which is the next best thing to a DEXA scan. And a DEXA scan costs like $100. Okay, so like it's the next best thing that you don't have to pay for. That's not like, and again, I think it's on par with like body calipers, maybe even better because it's actual like full body scan. But that being, and I'll go ahead and say this again. I said this in past live streams, guys. Those Staiku body fat, whatever you want to call them, scanners are not legit. They suck. Okay. They are not scanning your body fat. They are scanning the outside of your body to look at the shape. That is not body fat percentage. That is not at all what body fat percentage is. Okay, so I need to make sure you guys know that, because a lot of you guys will base your body fat percentage based off of what that thing is saying to you, and it's not anywhere near accurate. And even if you're using that to like track progress, it's tracking your progress based off the shape of your body, and that's not a really good way to do that. It's not a good way to do that in any way, shape, or form. I see those in a lot of like Anytime Fitnesses and stuff like that. A lot of these corporate places I would not recommend using those. You would be way better off just getting a scale for the home that does like a quick body fat percentage scan. That's going to be more accurate, and it's going to cost you like $20. Okay, and you can use it whenever. And the main thing, again, it doesn't have to be the most accurate thing. You need to track the progress, right? Because it's going to track stuff like fat loss versus muscle gain. And the way it does this, guys, typically these things will have like scanners on the bottom of either your feet, or like the InBody does your feet and your hands. It's a little bit more advanced, so it'll check your heart rate and stuff like that. Even has a thumb scanner. But the big thing with these things is what they'll do is they'll send a little bit of electrical current through your body. And when we're talking about fats and muscle is mainly just water, right? And when we talk about fats is an oil, and we know that oil and water don't mix. So the big thing there is those things are able to tell the difference between basically like, water and fat just based off of how well the electricity can go through that current, right? We know that water is very, that electricity can go through water very easily. We know that it's not necessarily the same thing when it comes down to fat, right? That's why, stuff like rubber can, is shock absorbent. So like something to kind of keep in mind, that's how those things work. That's why we know they're not, again, not the most accurate thing in the world. Even a DEXA scan is not the most accurate. In the DEXA scan, I'm not trying to spend too much time on talking about body fat percentages yet. Now you guys know like where my mind goes like most of the day when I'm thinking about a lot of this stuff. But a DEXA scan is probably the most accurate, but you have to pay money for that. And I don't want people, for something you need to really keep an eye on, like anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks at a time. Like, I don't want you guys having to dish out like $100 for that, for something that you need to do like all the time like that. That is really something you could really, because again, it's not like you need an accurate testing. You just need to make sure the trend's going the right direction, right? That's why I don't like those stipends, because they just look at the shape of your body, which is it's a really weird way of measuring progress. Really weird. What if you had some like, I don't know, I'm not even going to go there. But anyways, we'll move away from that because I'm spending too much time talking about like, body composition. But just understand, like, that's what you guys are going to want to like look at. It's going to be body fat percentage. You need to spend less time thinking about the number on the scale. Now, that doesn't mean you don't weigh yourself out. You still need to know what these numbers are, because this is going to dictate stuff like how many calories you need to be eating a day, so many other things. So again, guys, that doesn't mean don't track your weight. It just means don't base your base your progress off of that weight. Because if you're gaining muscle and burning fat, the weight's not going to, again, I'll have to bring up my client, Ashley, that she lost 10% body fat, and I think she lost less than 5 pounds overall. But again, she looks like a completely different person. And I posted her. I like to post these people on my stories, but I was talking to someone on a call yesterday who was watching my content. And I asked them if they see my client transformations, because I do try to post a lot. I honestly feel like I post them too much, right? Like I feel like when I post these client transformations, I feel like, oh my God, this is going to seem like real vain and stuff like that. I guess I need to post them more, because she said she hadn't even seen any of them. And so like, that's, if you guys wonder, like, for you guys who keep up with my content, it probably will seem like I post like, I'll post this, I'll post that. And I'm like, oh, he posted this person like 3 weeks ago or something like that. But like, just understand, there are a lot of people who watch my stuff who don't even see that, because the algorithm is just crazy. So it's really, really, really crazy. That being said, getting back into body composition, the big thing we got to understand here, guys, is that if we want to try and make sure that we are going to retain this muscle, which is going to help you with your fat loss goals, and it's going to make things sustainable, we got to make sure that we are lifting, right? We have to have a stimulus telling ourselves, hey, this is a reason our body needs to keep this muscle, right? Without that, you don't use it, you lose it. That's real. That's very real when it comes to this stuff. So you have to make sure there's a stimulus. This is why I like full body training, because even if you miss a day, you're probably not going to miss too much if you make up with another full body day, right? At least 3 days a week. If you aren't making that at least 3 days a week, I promise you're probably going to, you're definitely not going to see optimized results. And I would obviously recommend more days a week, but don't sacrifice it for steps, guys. The steps are what's going to help you make sure we're shredding that body fat off. The steps are huge. I make all my clients do 10K steps a day. If they're not hitting 10K steps a day, then I get on them about it, because it makes that's the difference. If we can get 3 to 5 days a week of full body weight training in, right, and then fill the rest out with 10K steps a day, and then obviously the calorie tracking, that's the recipe for this, by the way, guys. That's it. I just dropped the whole, I hope you guys are saving these live streams. I just dropped the whole recipe for building fat, burning muscle. I said that backwards. Burning fat, building muscle, right? It's literally that, and then stay consistent for 2 to 3 months at a time. And I promise you, you will see incredible, incredible change, but you have to stick to it. That's where people need me. That's where people, because typically what I do with my people is if they're not sticking to it, I hit their ass up. And it's a lot easier for, same thing if you got to turn your homework into your teacher. A lot of times, you turn your homework in as a kid because you know your teacher's going to be asking for it the next day. So it is with my clients. It helps a lot, right? Not to mention we have a system and a lot of stuff built into place to kind of work on the psychology of stuff like habit forming and stuff like that when it comes to building good habits. But a big part of that is making sure that we're getting this 3 things down. You need the weight training 3 to 5 days a week. You need to make sure you're getting that 10K steps a day, and you need to make sure you're tracking your calories. And if I could say that there's number one thing that's the most important, is getting the calorie tracking part down. That's the number one most important thing. If you are under eating, I promise you're going to run into problems. You're going to get injured. You're going to feel very, very emotional a lot of the time because you're in starvation mode. You'll see a lot of people online say, well, that's not a real thing. That's bullshit, guys. That's people who don't know what they're fucking talking about. I assure you, there's going to be a big hormonal crash of cortisol if you do not make sure you're eating enough. It'll be huge. And that's going to make you super emotional. It's going to make you super, by definition, depressed, because you quite literally just don't have the energy to produce the hormones needed to keep you normal. Literally, that's a huge part of this. And that's also because that's why your testosterone drops. For example, that's one hormone, right? Your testosterone drops as by default. And that's a hormone that literally affects your mental too, by the way, right? Which will change your personality. It'll change the way you react to stuff. You'll be tired all the time. You'll feel really low energy. And if you have a lot of cortisol that's being produced, you'll feel really anxious a lot. Right. And so something we got to play and keep in mind, guys, is like, how do you expect to stay consistent if that's you all the time? And this is something you need to be like I said, guys, if you want to lose 20 to 30 pounds, you got to stay in that zone for 3 months at least. That's 10 pounds a month, which is a lot. Right. And that 10 pounds a month is a big jump. That's you doing everything else like to the T. Right. For most people, you're going to see more like, if you're gaining muscle, it's going to be, 2 to 3 pounds a month. And again, I'm using numbers on the scale, and I really don't know what you guys use of that. But you guys see why this becomes a problem. It starts becoming a very, it just escalates. And so with my people, I really try and push, even if you got to force feed yourself, it's going to make you feel better later. I promise. I've just been doing this so long that I know how this kind of this rolls. If we can't get that part on track, it's going to be a lot of crash and burn, right? And so the part that's hard for me as a trainer is because I know it comes from a place of very big wants and desire, and that's also required to get results. It's huge. It's non-negotiable, right? And so it's just about realigning that energy and going the right way and switching a belief system. And that's where a lot of my client challenges and stuff like that come into play. But a lot of that will come into play with your calorie tracking, making sure you're eating enough. Obviously, I feel like I don't need to say this. We need to obviously make sure we're not eating too much, right? Like, you're not going to lose body fat if you're eating too much. You have to be in a calorie deficit. And again, guys, no matter what happens, if you're in a calorie deficit, you are going to feel tired. It's going to happen. Again, by default, it's what a calorie deficit is. You are giving your body less energy so that it burns more of its energy, right? And because of that, your body's going to have higher cortisol. It's going to have this and that and this and that. It's just the big thing with under eating is you don't want to exacerbate that to the point of muscle loss. Mental drain, mental drag. There's a whole plethora of stuff I can get into, but it's something you got to be very, very aware of because it's a fine balance. Because again, guys, you're talking about something that's hard to do. It's something that most people struggle with this. Most people have a struggle with this. They have a hard time doing this. So you got to understand that it's going to take a lot of getting out of your own way, if that makes sense. making sure that like you may feel a particular way about this. Like you may not want to eat food, but like, dude, if you got like, again, if you got 500 calories to eat and you've already hit your protein goal and you're trying to be good by not eating. And guys, I say this because I see a lot of people do this. I see a lot of people who really want freaking good results do this all the time. I got on a phone call last night with someone who did this, right? So it's something that I see like a good percentage of people doing, which is, it's a good problem to have because it's a lot easier than me having to be like, you got, getting you fired up and going. Because I don't have to get you fired up. I know you're fired up. I've got to realign that energy. You know what I mean? And so a big thing we got to do with this kind of subset of people is you got to make sure that you're not listening, because it's no different if we don't make sure that we're catching this. It's no different than like skipping the gym because you had a bad day, right? Or binge eating because you had a bad day, or going and drinking alcohol because you had a bad day, right? Like if you go and use not eating to, or if you use anger from you not, or self-hatred, right? Because trust me, guys, I understand this part a lot. This is the part I had a hard time with for a long time. But if you use like, I get self-hatred's the best way I can say, because that's what it is, right? You're sitting there, you're being hard on yourself. That's what it is, right? And if you use that to fuel you, to get to kind of move yourself through this, then that's not logical. That's you using emotion to fuel you, which is going to make you make emotional decisions, which is going to put you in the wrong boat. It's going to make you feel like you're doing the right thing because you'll have a dopamine response to that. You'll feel like you're doing the right thing because you're pushing yourself to do something, right? That's a big part of how dopamine works. It's a motivating thing. And so if you get mad at yourself because you messed up, and then you're like, no, I'm going to do this. Right? No, I'm not going to eat. No, I'm going to make myself do this. I'm going to make myself do that. Right? The thing is, you'll feel good by doing that because it makes you feel like you're going in the right direction, even if you aren't. That's something you got to catch, because it'll make you super frustrated and pissed off if we don't catch that. It'll make you feel like you're doing the right thing, even though you aren't, and it'll send you in the wrong direction. And I hate when people go down that road. I don't hate it. There's a lot more things I hate. It's a hard thing for me when people go down that road, because I know it comes from a place of wanting it so fucking bad, which is something I resonate with a shit ton. I understand that feeling more than anything else, right? But again, we got to get out of the mindset of cutting weight. We got to get out of the mindset of, just trying to lose, right? We got to get out of the mindset of trying to be as skinny as possible. We got to get out of the mindset of trying to get as small as possible, because maybe you're someone like me that was big all their life, right? Guys, I was over 200 pounds by the age of like 10, right? I was 250 by the age of 13. Like I was a big kid all of my life until 16 when I decided to make a change, right? So it was all I ever knew. It was literally all I ever knew. Right. And so all of that is like, I want to get smaller. 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 But there's another side to me that knows that, like, hey, maybe that'll get me into, because I know that I don't want to look like a twig either. I know that for a fact. That's not the direction I want to go either. Right. And so there was a part of me that went like, hold on, let's make sure we're doing this the right way. And luckily, I had a lot of basis in weight training. I think that basis in weight training in my early days in football, even though I don't really resonate with being a football player, not really my sport, even though I was good at it and stuff. The big thing there is that I think that basis really helped give me a foundation of muscle and using like weight training as a form of fat loss. And I really think that's a big reason why I was able to lose this weight, because all it was after that, it was just about getting the diet down. It was just about getting that calorie tracking down. Now, some of you guys may be saying, well, Chase, what about that 10K steps a day? Here's the thing about the 10K steps a day, okay? 10K steps a day is going to exacerbate the process, but the reality is you can use calorie tracking to adjust the process. Here's what I mean by that, okay? It takes roughly about 10, 15 minutes of walking to burn 100 calories. Or you can just not eat 100 calories. Which one do you think's easier? Which one do you think takes more work? You guys see what? This is why calorie tracking is king. This is why it's so important. It's going to tell you exactly what you need to do, and it's going to tell you when you can eat out of pleasure and when you need to eat out of working towards a certain task, working towards a certain goal, right? Like, shout out, I see Stephanie in chat. She's a great example of this, right? She's a great example of someone who's really good about hitting her freaking protein goals, really freaking good about hitting her protein goals. Like, I don't have to worry about her hitting her protein goals, right? But sometimes those calories are a little bit low. And so I know the big thing for her, right, is making sure that we like eat a Snicker bar. You know, like eat some food that you actually want to eat. Get those calories up a little bit. But that's a great example of what I'm talking about, is like making sure that you're like hitting these certain goals. For a lot of people, I don't see this problem from her. A lot of people really struggle with hitting that protein goal, and they'll hit the calorie, or they'll be 1,500 calories, and maybe they have 2,000 calories left, and they got 25 grams of protein, so they have 500 calories and 25 grams of protein left to eat. But like, they just feel like they can't eat anymore, right? They won't hit that protein goal, and that's the big thing. I'm like, dude, you got 500 calories and 25 grams of protein. You can make that work. You can eat a few protein bars. Well, I don't feel like it. Well, dude, like, you gotta. Again, this is the result that's required, right, guys? Like, if you want a specific result, did you really get into this thinking that you were just going to be able to eat the way you wanted to? It's not going to happen, right? Remember, there's a point where you have to eat out of fuel and not out of how you want to eat. Because if you eat out of how you want to eat, it's going to lead you down the same path. And again, this is why I talk to a lot of these people about, like, if we got to be very aware. If you're wanting to body recomp, if we're wanting to drop that body fat, gain that muscle, we got to be very aware. Because the reason I say this is because you really only need to be in a slight calorie deficit to make this happen. Right? It's not big. The deeper of a calorie deficit you're in, the more muscle you are going to lose. That's why I say it this way. And that's why it's got to be very, very important. Like, we really only need you into like a 500 calorie deficit. After that, as long as we're hitting our workouts and our 10K steps a day, and we're hitting our protein goals, you're gonna see results. You will, I promise you, I assure you, you are going to see results. But you have to stay. The big thing is, like, people will do that for a week and be like, I did it. No. But like, this is what we call a lifestyle change, right? It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a significant amount of work. So we got to make sure that we stay in this zone and figure out a way to keep this up for a lifetime, not just for like a couple months at a time. Because I promise you guys, if we only can do this for a couple months at a time, it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be something that you can keep up for a lifetime. So make sure that we are building a good foundation that's easy to stick to. Set the standards, track calories, right? Make sure we are hitting these workouts. Make sure we are getting those 10K steps a day. If we can focus on that, then we can start adding stuff on. Okay? But don't just start piling stuff on, trying all these new supplements, trying all these new fad diets, trying all these new different, workouts that you saw online without getting that foundation set up first. Okay? So I promise you guys, this is the live stream to watch if you're trying to figure out how to burn fat and build muscle. I gave you the blueprint. Now you just got to stick to it. If you guys are struggling with that, need to hit your boy up. I'll hook you the hell up. But I'll talk to you guys next time. That's all I got for you guys today. I promise we will be live on this Thursday. I will figure out, if something pops up, I will figure out a way to make it work. But I promise the plan is to go live. So I will see you guys then. Peace out. Have a wonderful